follow bits of interest. Looking back, it all makes sense, but back then it didn't.
Mm-hmm. Brett's just put his hand up about just hone into that thing about wandering in the desert experience and describe that and how do you come out of that, or I'm sure a lot of people resonate with that.
I was waiting for a pillar of cloud or a pillar of fire to show me which way to go. Neither showed up, which is why it did feel like wandering. But I don't know, in scriptures, it's always been about faithfulness in the small things. Even where Jesus says, whatever you did for one of the least of these, kind of concept, it's just that little bit. Bring what you've got. I think it's looking back. It's okay. I didn't connect that at the time, but that relationship actually led to something else. Something that became clearer later. But it was really frustrating at the time.
So what brought you into the world that you're in at the moment?
Brokenness and blessing. Probably one of the catalysts was I had this interesting conversation with Adrian yesterday where I confessed to him that I wasn't a great church attendee. Like, I've gone to church all my life, but have been the kind of person who's sitting there a little bit cynical, trying to find ways to stay awake, stay engaged, but feeling religiously compelled to stay, despite my bones telling me everything else. So I experienced some church conflict that I felt uncomfortable with, things with leadership, things with Asian churches like a good AGM, and I was really frustrated with how those things played out. And maybe like any, I think being a lawyer then made me go into thinking about, you know what, they're supposed to have done this, and why didn't they do that? And then I think that curiosity just kind of fueled this interest in, there's actually a whole bunch of stuff that maybe as Christians we don't necessarily think of in terms of corporate leadership, corporate accountability, and how that can have a positive or negative effect on people. And I just got interested through that.
No, wow, I'm really really interested in that, actually. It's funny you mentioned that there was almost a dissonance with church attending, that maybe like catapulted you out there beyond the walls of the church to see some change, or to be able to do something that maybe you felt a bit frustrated or restricted in the church. And I feel like that's something that, as we have these discussions, if there was one thing that we want to take away, or that I feel like we've taken away from this, is just this, the church his people have to be empowered beyond the walls of the church and take our place and take back ground out there. So much more. So I really resonate, and that feels in terms of, the different sometimes frustrations with the structures of church. But I'm really encouraged by you, John, that you've, activated that. And whatever you do, I don't actually know much about the work that you're doing, but Adrian said you're involved in a lot of non-for-profits, and, you mentioned Brett and his work with the legal side of things. So yeah, thank you for just taking action rather than, I think a lot of people can be a bit just discouraged and not activated, and then we shut down a side of them and part of them, thinking that if they can't find their outlet in the church structure, that maybe they're not really doing their best as a Christian. I feel quite like, stifled, and so what would you have to say to people who might find themselves in that bucket? Like,
how do you reach a stage of being able to be honest with yourself, and at the same time you don't make, I think, the leap that some people, including myself, are tempted to make, which is I don't like church, and therefore I don't have faith. I don't know if the link is, or I think people make that link, but I'm not sure if it really should be there. So it's you lose hope in in the institution, but well, your faith shouldn't be in the institution. So I think being able to be honest with yourself about your own faith, and also how much of this is actually whatever I've experienced with an institution, and being able to distinguish that, I think that's really hard to make that distinction. People experience one through the other often.
John, you were sharing, you've been a lawyer for quite a while, and then you're also working through, those tensions and, the struggles of, those feelings within the church in terms of service and, just that disconnect, if you want to call it that. And do you want to share a bit about, I guess, the journey of, and I guess the difference it's made in terms of how you, how that brought you to a point in terms of how you now see work, and what, your role as a lawyer is beyond just being a lawyer, but a Christian in law, and I guess the difference in purpose, or how that's helped to give you a little more clarity in how you operate.
You've been generous out of the conversation I had with you yesterday. I suppose for context, I confessed to Adrian that I was really involved in youth ministry, kind of back in uni days. But actually, the reason I was involved in youth ministry was because being involved in youth ministry at the time would get me out of going to church service, and that was that was a no-brainer for me. And I suppose thinking about that, and so I didn't have necessarily any sort of concept that faith and work could be aligned. Maybe I had a particular kind of theology which separated the two growing up. I don't know where I got that from. I think part of me wants to blame church, but I think as an adult, you kind of got to stop blaming other people. Certainly not an example I've taken from my parents. Now understanding what they do. So I think there was definitely around the time that I met Adrian, that was a real question for me about how does me being an insurance lawyer align with me as a follower, and how does it actually play out? Does it mean, okay, so it means that I'm honest, it means that I honor people, that I try and work hard. They don't seem to be particularly outstanding things, and the alternative to being an honest person seems to be pretty poor. So it was just kind of starting from that kind of place. Fast forward a little bit, I suppose, what does it mean for me to be a Christian lawyer? I've been able to, if I had kind of been able to become a missionary or something, I would never have had the kinds of opportunities to build relationships, to talk about what is truly purposeful, what is strategic in attaining a charitable purpose, which is my area of law, with all the kinds of organizations that I've had. I've sat with Buddhist organizations talking about faith and purpose. Maybe in another time, I would have felt, oh, John, you need to take advantage of the evangelistic opportunity. But like, we're talking about two completely different worlds. The fact that I'm having a conversation with a bunch of Buddhist leaders about what's purposeful for them, what are they seeing and want to do that is good in the world, and them actually having a really open discussion with a Christian about it. That is not a world that I ever would have occupied as a missionary. So I think it's a very, as in my profession, there's a really sacred opportunity for that kind of openness about what are we trying to achieve? What do we want to do with this? How can we make and communicate clearly that, maybe some of those things that, maybe didn't realize were important and good things and good opportunities 15 years ago.
It's interesting that you say, if you were going to be a missionary, that you wouldn't necessarily have that sort of opportunity to find yourself in that context. And I feel like there's a bit of this misconception or this sense of what we've been, I don't know, like you said, where did it come from? It came from somewhere, but we're not here trying to find blame or it's just we've had this this mindset where a missionary is someone who goes overseas and plants churches in a foreign kind of land. But so much of, I guess, our journey has been that we are all called to be missional, right? And that we need to be finding the mission field in our own backyards. And this sense of it, again, placing value on people in every sphere and echelon of society, that everyone is on mission all the time. And it's kind of that concept that I think a lot of this 80% of the church, maybe that is kind of maybe a bit non-activated or not recognizing their beautiful role in the body of Christ out there, to come into that fullness and find their alignment as in what they're doing and in their labor. That sometimes, like you said, it might just call to be an honest person, and maybe bring them along to church if I ever get that opportunity to kind of give them a little flyer. Like, it's so much more than that, and it's so much more kind of natural and in the moment, in those conversations that you find yourself where the Holy Spirit is there and active.
Yeah, there was a conversation I had with a pastor of my church, my current church, probably about 9 months ago, where I've done stuff at church most of my life, and I've made some very conscious decisions not to fall into that trap again. I don't want to sound really nasty when I say that, but there's a bit of loaded stuff in that. And he said to me, John, you are serving in your own way already. If we can be a place where we can fill you up to keep doing what you're doing, just find your rest here. It's like, I feel like I've been waiting all my life for someone to say that. Wow, it was just really refreshing.
That's a great perspective. Who said that to you? Your pastor?
Yeah, my church life has been probably the opposite. It's John White, yes, sir. Okay, well, let me find some time that I don't have to prioritize a group of people that would require me to deprioritize all the other relationships that I currently have been put in, to do something that might bore me out of my mind. Sorry, that's terribly cynical.